Mr. Depp, you're down 95%. Have you ever considered selling?
No, I can't. No.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. Happy halving day. That's right. It is the Bitcoin halving. As you guys can see right here, I don't know what time it is by you or where we're at when you're watching this video, but nevertheless, the Bitcoin halving is going to, in fact, happen today. Now, obviously, you know, if you're new to the space, you're probably wondering, why is the price not skyrocketing? Well, historically, the actual event itself is not really that big of an event, but it is, in fact, a bullish catalyst for Bitcoin. I want to go over a lot of things. I think there was a little bit of misinterpretation of my previous video. If you go back and read some of those comments, there was a lot of controversy in the comment section. So I do want to clarify some of that. I want to go over what we could expect with Bitcoin realistically. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now. There's even more news that came out, you know, regarding potential wars and stuff like that. So obviously, these things can be a little bit damning when it comes to the market price action, right? And I actually am in Dubai right now, which is pretty crazy to think about that. And yeah, I'm here for token 2049, which, by the way, before we get into anything, I don't know if you guys know this, but there was a massive amount of rain in Dubai. They had literally a year's worth of rain in just 3 days. I wasn't going to do this, but I have to show you guys. This was literally an actual clip of my Uber ride from the airport to my hotel. So obviously it's a lot nicer now, but man, that was pretty freaky. I've never actually seen anything like that in my life. But I digress. We're here to talk about Bitcoin. So if we realistically have a look at what is going on right now, this is the halving, which I guess I could technically move this over here because technically we're having it right now, basically. But, you know, just to get this out of the way, really what we've been doing is just kind of staying range bound between these two levels, right? We come down, we sweep the lows of 60, we come up, we sweep the highs of, 70. So realistically right now, we're just in a range, right? The only thing that you could say is that we do notice that we are kind of putting in, this lower low structure as well as this lower high structure. Now you could argue, hey, maybe it's some kind of a bull flag or something like that, right? That is a possibility. But what I want to talk about specifically is what usually tends to happen, because everybody, like I said in my previous video, and I specifically said in the beginning of the video, this has nothing to do with what's going to happen tomorrow. It was sort of just a broader term outlook, because realistically, until we break really either of these directions, anything is really in the cards, right? But if you come over here and have a look, it was actually more of a bullish candle thus far this week than it is a bearish candle. I mean, yes, we are lower here, but for the most part, there was a lot of buying, right? You are seeing whales or whoever coming in and buying these dips. And, this is happening at the same time that the stock market has literally had 5 consecutive days of red, whereas Bitcoin has had a little bit of a mixed kind of amount. We've seen some days green, some days red, but ultimately we are just trading in the range. So I'm going to go over a few different things today. I want to show you some really interesting charts that might help to just break out that perspective for you guys and just kind of realistically, again, discuss where Bitcoin could be headed, because I still think it's going to shock a lot of people in ways that most of us aren't expecting, right? So we're going to get into all that today. If that sounds good to you, it's good to be back. Sorry I didn't make any updates. I was, flying. 15-hour flights are never cool. But that being said, also friendly reminder, guys, if you are looking for a new exchange to trade on that has no KYC, definitely check out Blowfin, which, by the way, I found out stands for blockchain finance. But I know a lot of you thought something different when you heard that. We're not going to go into that, but if you guys do want, they do have up to $3,500 in bonuses. I do have those links below in the description, all right? So, talking about, and this is, shout out to Crypto Rover for putting this chart together. Really, when you see these Bitcoin halving events, they tend to ultimately be non-events, right? Sometimes you pump into them and then you dump afterwards, same kind of thing here, sideways action. And currently we're in that again. But, I think the main takeaway is that really the majority of the gains come after the halving. The halving in and of itself really is not that much of an interesting event, but it is a catalyst that eventually trickles down, right? Once the market digests the fact that, we've seen, even though the ETFs have slowed down a little bit, we have seen that the ETFs are still eating up a lot of the Bitcoin, and definitely more than what is being mined. And at the same time, we have seen the exchange value of Bitcoin dropping, right? It was at around 12% a month ago, and now we're around 11%, and it's still falling today. So that just kind of begs the question, what happens if we actually run out of Bitcoin? Now, obviously, that's not going to probably happen because at some point, whales are going to come in and sell. But realistically, if the emission rate is getting cut in half and the demand stays the same, well, I think it's pretty obvious what the outcome is, right? So, if we come over here and we have a look like Thomas over from Hey Apollo pointed out, the halving is basically when you exit out of this accumulation phase. So, are we in the beginning of the bull market? No, we're not. Clearly the bull market started a while ago, and that's what we were saying on the channel, but we are exiting out of the accumulation phase. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a bad time to buy or whatever. It really just means that we're gearing up for that major parabolic run. Now, there's a lot of arguments as to how long it's going to go, 4-year cycle, shortened cycle. I don't know. Anybody telling you that they know is lying. Nobody really knows. I think long term, Bitcoin will just continue to go up regardless of, at the end of this cycle, if we have another 80% crash or something like that, who knows? Maybe we won't, right? Last cycle, we were seeing 30%, 40% crashes. Now we're only really seeing crashes, around the 20% area. But like Gel pointed out, Bitcoin is reclaiming lost ground while funding remains low. It took nearly 2 months of disgusting price action, but the ecosystem has been cleansed of froth and greed. So you could say that this might be positioning us for a leg higher. And for those people out there that are screaming that the market cycle's over, there's some analysts out there again saying like, oh, it's a triple top and all this stuff. Well, Key Young Jew pointed out, if you look at the unrealized profits for on-chain cohorts, right, you have old whales at around 223%, new whales 1.6%, small miners 131. So what does this really mean? Well, it just means that compared to what we've done previously, look at these, gains that they have right here. There's really not enough profit, right? If the market was to end right now, which I don't believe it's going to do that. I don't know why people are even saying that. But, ultimately, this would be one of the most pathetic bull runs of all time. It really would. It would just be an absolute depressing, terrible event, and I would be quite shocked if this was the top, because as we've gone over with multiple indicators, there's really nothing that is showing us that we are slowing down. In fact, the money flow just continues to move to the upside, and we did point out that once we get these RSIs in this area, they can stay there for a very long time. Just because something is over, bought doesn't mean it can't stay overbought, right? And again, this parabolic trend is very subjective. Kevin Svensson had mentioned on the channel, I can move this here and I could say we touched it. I could, you can basically play with this, right? It's just a general guideline of what the price is doing. There's nothing specific, but what I will say is, if we take the price sort of from the top here to the correction that we've already had, that's about a 18, 19% correction. So granted that we've basically seen 20% corrections this entire cycle, that could suggest that this move is over, right? The reason that we were talking in the last video about potentially moving down to some lower levels was simply just to point out the fact that if we did in fact have something like a 30% correction, just again, I'm not saying we're going to do it. I'm just being realistic, from this area, and you come down here, look at that. That's about a 27% correction, 30%. It would bring us right to the top of this range right here, and it would be right at the bottom of this parallel channel. And you could see how Bitcoin actually does respect this. You could say that, charts and TA are just a bunch of voodoo, but look at this. This acted as resistance. It acted as resistance, right? We came down here. This was a bit of a bear trap, I guess you could say. And then ultimately, it respects the heart line. It bounces. And then look, as soon as you get above it, look at that. It becomes support, right? So now that we've fallen back down, we're coming down to the next area. But again, we're not even looking necessarily at these lower levels. It's still a constructive price. So even if Bitcoin, let's say, hypothetically again, I know the comment section is going to go crazy. Not saying Bitcoin comes all the way down to 55,000 or something like that, but it would still be an uptrend. You would still be constructively putting in higher highs and higher lows on the macro, right? Now, obviously on the lower time frame, yeah, we're in a downtrend. This is a downtrend, guys. You can clearly see that we're moving in a downtrend. So we do have to pay attention. There's a lot going on. I don't know what happens if stocks start to sell off, but you can see that some of these levels are playing out with these liquidation heat maps. I mean, if you zoom in right here, you have this lower area right around the 60,000, just below that, and then you have this area. I guess this is sort of around the $64,000 to $65,000 range. And I mean, currently that's literally where we are right now. So, it is trying to shake out the weak hands, or at least the over leveraged players. And these are the games that the whales play, right? But at the end of the day, this little guy right here is what everyone's freaking out about. And we're still just struggling, breaking above what I believe to be the previous cycle, the 4.236 fib, which is really kind of where we should have went. I mean, we really have gone there every other cycle, but because of what was going on with FTX and Celsius and Voyager and just all that terrible nonsense that was happening, we never quite made it up there. So, I mean, to say that the cycle, again, I'm just kind of calling out some of these bears because they celebrate every 10%, 20% move. I don't know why. You could just see that right here. Basically, we're just consolidating, right? You have the lower 0.786, which is around that 57,000, which I did say is possible we could go to. But currently, we're just hanging around the median range of the 3.618, which essentially, just to kind of, in a nutshell, this is healthy, this is normal, there's nothing really weird about this. And we still have these price targets up here, right? Bitcoin, the next area really between now is the 1.618, which is around $102,000 Bitcoin. So that's like our lower, just like kind of really weak market, lower bear case, I guess, with the mid-range at around 155,000, and of course our super bullish case at around $240,000 for Bitcoin. Now, I'm not going to try to pretend that I know where the price is going to go, but again, what we were saying in the previous video, because a lot of people seem to think that I'm saying that we're going to have some big kind of crash or something like that. That's not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is that, generally speaking, if we are in the explosive part of this cycle, then you tend to remain above all these moving averages, specifically this green one, which is the 21 exponential. And you can see at first you start to tap it, right? You dance on it a little bit, and then you kind of have that liftoff phase. So, you can argue that maybe this is kind of what we already had down here. Obviously it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So again, I was just saying that, had we come down and had that full correction, again, just going from top to bottom down to that area, 27%, maybe we're not going to get a 30% correction. I think at some point we might be due for one. But again, there's nothing bad about what I was saying, okay? I was just saying that obviously the markets are taking a little bit of a breather. And also something else just to point out, I just want to mention this. You guys do remember that Bitcoin has never put in 8 green candles in its entire history. I don't know if you guys remember that video from a few weeks ago. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And now we're having an 8th candle and it's red. And honestly, this is kind of what you would expect statistically. I mean, you can have all these different bull bear cases for why things should or shouldn't happen. But if you just look back historically at the statistics, which is really all we have to go by, it was kind of expected that we would have a little bit of a red candle this month, right? Obviously, anything can happen. If we did get a green candle, that would be the first time ever in Bitcoin's history. But, again, talking about these areas of interest, you could see as we go lower, there becomes more and more on the volume range profile. And this blue zone right here is a really interesting area. Now that has a low target of 47,000 and a high target of 52,000. Are we going to get down to that level? Well, not only do we have, a lot of support there, which is actually quite interesting because there is a little bit at 57, which was the number we had mentioned, but we also have a very constructive uptrend here. And we also have, granted, this is only 2 points of contact, so you can't consider it a trend. Really, it's supposed to be 3, but ultimately, you have a lot of upward support on these diagonal spider lines as well as the volume. Now, the only thing, again, I'm not trying to be bearish here. I'm just pointing out that if you look at the stochastic RSI, you could see when it starts to get up to these levels, that's usually when you have these cool off periods. And, just kind of follow me here, follow my cursor right here. You could see that you have these curves and it really doesn't get a bounce until you come down to these lower levels below the 20 right here. And you can see if you follow it up right there, you see where this is? And that's where you get the bounce. And this is literally every single time, right? We come down here, and this works for bear markets or bull markets, right? We come down, we have the curve up, we have a bounce, right? Down here, we have a bounce, right? Same thing, same thing. Well, if we look right here, hopefully you can see this, hopefully I'm not in the way, we're still coming down. You see what I'm saying, guys? So this is suggesting that, I'm not saying we have to go down to these levels, but realistically, you would want to see the stochastic RSI kind of come below the 20, right? I don't know if let me see if I could just draw that for you guys so you guys can kind of just see, something like this. You'd want to see it like come down like this. and then move back to the upside, right? So that is the only reason why I was suggesting, not just that reason, actually multiple reasons, why, maybe we could have a little bit more of a correction. That's all I was saying. So again, Bitcoin is really not going to be bullish until it breaks above, especially these daily candles around basically 70,000. I mean, I'm going to just go back to the range here. This right here. This is the range, okay? So we have to break above here, right, to continue being bullish and hold above it. Or if we break below it, there's that chance that we get caught on this trend. And I was just saying there was a lot of confluence with the 55 to 58K area. That's really all I was saying. And again, that's right here. I mean, look, if Bitcoin was to literally fall today, look at that. That's 55,000. But of course, that's probably not what's going to happen. Maybe we bounce around here. Maybe we retest this. Everybody gets bullish. I mean, I don't know how long. We could stay in here. I mean, we can go sideways for quite a long time. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is really you're just in the middle of the chop right now, right? And what I believe is if history is playing out in a similar fashion, I believe that we're in the same area that we were back here, right? When we were trying to breach the all-time high previously, and we had the pi cycle top indicator, which we're not at a top yet, by the way. I'll let you know when it crosses over, but currently that is where we're having our resistance. So, if you think that history is going to play out similarly, did I say that right? Sorry, guys. I'm still having a little bit of jet lag. From this breakout point to the top, this was about a 225% move. So even if we didn't get a 225% move, you think diminishing returns, I still think $102,000 Bitcoin is definitely not out of the cards for this cycle. And, again, more confluence here. You have the lower moving average at around 55,000. So again, we're just in a range, we're trading, but ultimately it is constructive price and we are moving to the upside. Stock Money Lizards had actually pointed out this very interesting fractal. Maybe we do something like this, chop around, start to grind up, and then maybe we have the cycle peak sometime if we follow the 4-year cycle at the end of September. Of course, we have to see how these things play out. But, people asking, are we still early? I just wanted to just read this one thing from CZ. He said, somebody asked me if Bitcoin halving is like a stock split. We are still early. The answer is no. Happy halving. So, again, just to kind of end there was no bearishness overall. There was nothing saying that the market is going to end. I just personally, right now, am still seeing a lot of things that are telling us that there is that possibility that we're not quite ready to break back to the all-time high. And historically, we always hit resistance there. We have spent a little bit longer there than we usually do. It's usually around 4 to 5 weeks. We've been there for like almost 2 months now. But the market's maturing, so maybe things just move a little bit slower or things take a little bit more time. There's a lot more smart, I guess you want to call it, smart money in the space. So at the end of the day, guys, I just wanted to say, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about what's going on right now. There's nothing in the charts that's telling me that this is the end of the cycle, that we should be bearish. And, if we do get a 30% correction, which we haven't yet, maybe we're only going to get those 20s, I still think there's nothing to worry about. So that's kind of like where I want to end today's video. I don't want it to go too long because the Wi-Fi here really sucks. It's probably going to take me a while to upload this video. And again, guys, I just wanted to give a friendly reminder that if you do want to check out MetaSignals, they have version 2 out right now. And, you can join the Discord for free. This is Crown's video that he put out for it. And yeah, this is lifetime access. And they will be rolling out the what do you call it? The dollar, fiat, whatever you want to call it, soon. So if you guys don't want to buy the NFT, you can buy it you can buy it with dollars if you want. But the only thing is the NFT gives you lifetime access, whereas, the fiat purchase would have to be like a reoccurring thing. So I don't know. It's up to you guys. Check it out. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. Drop in the comments below. What are you thinking? How do you guys feel about this? I mean, obviously there's things going on in the world right now that are, pretty crazy. But, the world is a crazy place and, nobody likes when things like this happen, geopolitical tension and wars and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, ultimately, like I was showing you guys historically, it was more of like a worst case scenario. Markets really don't care in a way, which is kind of sad, but they really don't. They have an initial kind of freak sell-off, panic event. And then they generally just continue doing what they were going to do anyway. So if it was in a bear market, it's just going to stay in a bear market. But we're not in a bear market. We're in a bull market, which means that even if we had a temporary pullback, a pause, a 30% correction, it really doesn't matter because Bitcoin is still looking like it wants to move higher ultimately. And the cycle top, in my opinion, is nowhere near at this point. So for what it's worth, guys, that is it. My name is K-Dub. This is Crypto Zombie. If you do want to trade, you can check out these tutorials popping up right here, right now. I haven't made one for Blowfin yet, but let's be honest. If you can trade on one, you can trade on all of them. It's basically the same. If you watch any of these tutorials, same concept, different website. So that's it for me, guys. I'll see you later. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.